And I've seen so like in my country, I've seen so many of my brothers go back home, bring their women's here, and I have one friend that said that he's a mentor to me. He's been married to his wife in this country for like uh 35 years,
Mhm.
and they've been together. And he told me when he brought his wife here, because he was here first, and he went home after he got his PhD. So he's been in America like let's say almost 20 years.
Mhm.
Got his PhD, went home, married a young lady, brought her here. He never allowed her to mingle with other African ladies. He always kept her in a dome where if they're going out like an African event, he's right there with her, and they have like minimum of time. And once she told her, and then he's like, we gotta go. He did that so that she doesn't retract to those people to destroy it, because you have so many single mother uh in my tribe in this country. So when some of the women mingle with them, they get that advice of leave him, because you're gonna complain that, oh, he makes me cook, or I cook a lot, I'm tired. You're gonna complain because everybody complains about something to their friends. And they're gonna say, oh, you doing all that, you don't have to do that. Leave him, you get child support, you get this and that. And it goes to her head, and she forgets what the guy did, the struggle he did to bring her to America or Europe or whatever. And then she decides that she's
Mm.
done, and she changes her character and disobeys the man and does stuff that delinquents the marriage or the relationship. And she, in her hand, divides the relationship, and she's gone with the kid. And then the man is by himself, and they fight each other in court, and they hate each other. And it's because of one advice people give her. So I've seen so many cases of that, and that's why it is making our own people not to go home and bring their wife to the Western world, because there's a lot of cases of that. So what I always say is that advice is good, but you gotta, when people give you advice, you gotta um, weigh it and see what makes sense to you and what doesn't make sense to you. Because advice is supposed to improve you, not destroy you. So that's what I wanted to say.
When I think of um, advice, whether I'm seeking advice or giving advice, um, I do at times feel, as the person giving advice, if I don't feel that I am versed in whatever they're asking for advice of, I do tell them, like, I've never been, in this predicament. I've never had this job, or I've never had this situation happen. But if I were to be in a predicament like this is how I would approach that situation. So while when you think of like, say, a relationship, since that seems to be the focus, I didn't want it to solely be about relationships, but that's fine. We can talk about that. A lot of women, and I can only speak from a woman's perspective because I'm a woman. Um, our female friends are our tribe, right? They're going to support us. They're going to love us in good times and bad times. They're there to celebrate when something great happens. They're there to help pick you up when tragedy strikes, and that's just how it is for women. And I'm sure men have the same dynamic in their friendship circles. Um, a lot of times, I'm of the opinion that some women may not necessarily they may not necessarily be looking for advice. They may just want to, like, vent and just, like, share their feelings, their frustrations, or whatever the case may be, and just have a listening ear in a friend, especially if they have a partner or a spouse that is not really welcoming when it comes to, like, them being emotionally vulnerable. If the individual, I've worked all day, I don't want to come home and hear you nag or complain about whatever is going on in your life. I just want to relax and just eat my meal and watch TV. And and that's fine. In some instances that might be the case. So they might just want a listening ear. They might just want somebody just to hear them out, whatever it is that they have going on, and just, like, let them unload. And then I think it's important that um, people be mindful of the advice that they give to people, whether it be about relationship advice, whether it be about career, family, whatever the case may be, because we definitely don't want to project how we feel on that individual. But I think even in those situations where, like, say, you do have a single friend who has never been married or don't have any kids, they can still offer words of encouragement. So I know from the friendship circles that I have, and we have women, I have women in my friendship circles that are single, women that are in relationships, women that are married, women that have been divorced. And I can tell you with 100% certainty within the circle that if we have a friend who is at odds with their spouse and they're having a tough time, I can tell you for certain in this friendship circle that the advice is never to leave because there's nothing out here. So, like, I, specifically, I have a friend, and she shared with me that her and her spouse is going through some stuff, and they're talking about the D word. I'm like, oh my gosh, like my eyes opened up, like, girl, there's nothing out here. You know what I'm saying? So, like, is there anything that y'all can do to work through whatever the issues are? Because if it's fixable, fix it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you took those vows for better or for worse. And just given the current state of dating right now, I don't encourage anybody who is married, unless, like, your spouse is physically harming you, like your life is in danger. If you can work through it, like, try, because there is nothing out here but just people wanting to waste your time and play games. So, like, if you have a spouse, let's work through it. So, like, that whole narrative about, like, the single woman um advising her married friend to leave her husband, and then, like, months down the road or years down the road, the friend ends up with the husband. I mean, that has happened before, but I don't think that's like the main narrative here. You know what I'm saying? And misery does like company. There are some people that feel like they may be jealous of what that person has. And so, like, oh, there's a kink in the armor. So now they see, like, oh, they're in, tough times. So, yeah, girl, leave him. You can do better. Or will never be of the opinion to advise anybody to leave their spouse. Like, what you can handle, you know what your limit is. And if you can salvage the relationship, that will be my recommendation, because I believe in love. I love love. And if people have genuinely found love with their spouse, you got to work through it for better or for worse. That's just what it is. Um, but advice is, again, interesting because you can mean well and offer a word of advice, and someone, okay, so let me just kind of frame it this way. So you have someone that comes to you, right, and they are telling you about what they're dealing with, and you offer them some advice, right, really good advice on whatever the thing may be, and they're like, oh yeah, this is great, thank you so much for talking with me, whatever, right? And the person turns around and does the complete opposite of what you advise them to do, right? So, like, what's your and then they come back to you like a couple months down the road and say, oh, things haven't changed, and this and this and that and that, and you're like, well, look, I gave you like some advice, like, what happened? Oh, I just decided to do this instead. It's like, what's your position in that situation if someone comes back to you again with the same challenge that you gave them advice for before?
I only give advice once. I'll
Okay.
give you advice when you do something else. That's on you.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna waste my time and
Yeah,
give you advice because people get paid to give advice.
I
I'll
know that's
give you a
right.
free advice, and that happens a lot. And I noticed like when some people give somebody advice to do A, and then
Hmm.
when that same situation happens to them, they do B.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Oh, you
So
mean the person that's giving the
yeah,
advice? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes people give you advice of when the same situation, they don't do
They don't
the
do it.
same advice they give. They
Why
do
do you think
something
that's
else.
the case?
I guess sometimes people don't really understand what you're going through, really, really.
Okay.
They just look at the surface,
Hmm.
but they don't look at the bottom. That's why I would say only the person that wears the shoe knows where the shoe pains.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So that they give you advice on the surface, but when they get the same heat or the same feeling, they do something different
Okay.
compared to the advice they give you.
Yeah.
That's why I say when people give you advice, you gotta use your head and think.
Hmm.
If it makes sense and if it's gonna create peace, stability, you can apply it. If
Yeah.
it not, throw it away.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody gives advice according to their own understanding.
Hmm.
They're not in your shoe, they don't have the same book as you. You know, so advice is good. It opens your mind
Okay.
because sometimes your mind is narrow. But when this person gives you advice, that person gives you advice, your mind opens
Hmm.
and you play a lot of scenarios in your head of this is what can happen or
Yeah.
this is what's not gonna happen, and then you apply your item six, which is your sense, and you make it work. That's what I
Okay.
think on that.
Okay. Have you ever found yourself in a scenario where like you've offered advice to someone on a topic and like something similar happened in your life and like you kind of did the opposite as far as the advice that you gave to that person?
Um, I would say like when when um when my friend was dating a girl
Hmm.
and he really loved that, so he was spending money on her.
Hmm.
I told him, don't spend money on this girl, man. Leave if she's all about the money, leave her alone. Don't
Uh-huh.
spend money on her.
Yeah.
She should spend money on you. You know that money doesn't produce love. Money doesn't make a good woman stay with you, right?
Mm.
So I was advising him to leave the girl, don't spend money, you know. And he wasn't spending that much, but I didn't. At that time, I didn't feel like a man should spend money on a girl. You know what I mean? Because I feel like like you shouldn't spend on a girl. You should like the love should be neutral. Like let you guys. If you bring $20, she bring 20. You guys do something for that. You know what
Hmm.
I mean?
Hmm.
But you taking all the tabs and you complaining that man I spent like $30. We went there, man. My pocket is not good. I'm like, why you spending all this money?
Hmm.
And then when I had a relationship, I started spending too. Because now then I realized you gotta spend to keep the you gotta we men our value comes by what we provide.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And what you provide is that most times is that financiality.
Hmm.
Because that's what stabilizes the interaction. If you really love a girl, you're gonna spend no matter what. No way, it
Okay.
depends on the level of it,
Yeah.
but not like a gold digger level. Once in
Sure.
a while you want to buy a flower, it's money. Once in a while you want to take her to the movie and watch one movie, it's
Hmm.
money.
Hmm.
And that time we was in school, having like a side job.
Okay.
So money was scarce that time. So I did the opposite of what I was telling him. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think we've all been there. We've given friends or family really good advice, and then when you're faced with something similar, like you don't take your own advice.
Yes.
And I agree with you. It's like once when you're in the situation, like it's always easy to say like if it was me, this is what I would do.
Yeah.
Until like you're in the situation. So of course, like I've had um conversations with friends about like guys that they've dated or um I'll just stay with relationships since that seems to be the theme, but like they'll tell me about different things that has happened in their connection with someone. Like, well, you know it sounds like he's taking advantage of you, or it sounds like this, and
Hmm.
like if I were you, then I would do this. And and then when I find myself in a similar situation where like my emotions and feelings are involved, then it's kind of like I'm the exception to the I'm the exception to the rule. Or like the advice that I gave my friend last year or a couple months ago doesn't apply to me because it's different, because it's not really the same situation. So um yeah, like sometimes it's just hard to take your own advice, and it's not to say like your advice wasn't valid. It's just like you said, every situation is different.
Different, yeah.
And once you kind of put that shoe on, you realize like, oh man, like it's not as easy as I thought. Like I really like this guy, and if I decide to walk away from that connection, like what would that mean for me, or like whatever the case may be, or however you want to frame it. So yeah, I think we've all had
Yeah,
situations and scenarios like that.
yeah.
Um,
And one thing I hate is when somebody tells you if I was you, I say, you know me, bro. I hate when people tell me that if I was
yeah,
you,
yeah.
if I was you. Why are you saying if I
I
was
mean, I
you?
don't know that they mean it like literally. I think it's just like a thing that people say, like, as they're advising. I don't know that they mean
I
literally.
feel like for me it's like an insult.
Okay.
I take it as an insult. Because if I'm telling if I was you, I would do this.
Mm.
You know me. So why so you sound like you're better than me.
No, I
It
don't.
sounds like you looking at me like when I was doing like music,
Hmm.
somebody said if I was you, I said, nah, you're not better than me, bro.
But I don't think that's what they meant, though.
No, they might not mean it, but that's how I
That's
feel.
how you took
Yeah.
it. Hmm.
Because words are powerful, right?
They are.
When you're giving somebody advice, you gotta crack. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Just like if somebody that's been abused in a relationship, like
Yeah.
comes to you, my
Yeah.
boyfriend is beating me, he's doing that. You're not gonna say, hey, leave him alone, leave him. If I was you, I'll leave that guy. He's you know
Yeah.
you why you there?
Yeah.
That person is gonna look at you like you crazy. You don't know what
Mhm.
I'm going through.
Yeah.
You're not there. But if you come down and talk, okay, why do you
Hmm.
think it's best for you to be there?
Yeah.
What do you gain from being there?
Yeah.
You create a conversation.
Yeah. I
But
think even sometimes in those kind of conversations, like the other person that's asking for the advice would be like, well, if you were me, what would you do?
if the person asks you, that's fine. But
Yeah.
if you just the first thing you say,
If I were you, I
yeah,
would be.
yeah, yeah. So that's shows me that you putting a block. There's not a conversation. You telling me what to do. If you came to me and tell me, oh my boyfriend beat me up
Hmm.
today, and I'm like, okay, if I was you, I'll leave that guy.
I mean, I wouldn't think that you're being, me personally, I
Mhm.
wouldn't think that you're being better than me, or trying to show that you're, like you're saying, like if I was in your situation, and like I was in a situation where my partner was being abusive, but this is what I would do. Me personally, I wouldn't interpret it to mean that
But
you think you're better than me.
yeah, but that don't create a conversation. When I say that, it's like
Hmm.
when I say, "How are you?" What you gonna say?
I'm fine.
But you're not really fine.
I'm great.
You're not really fine. You have some, you stressed, you came late, your shoe broke,
In this moment, I'm fine.
So that's what I'm saying. You're not
Hmm.
fine. Nobody's ever fine, 100% fine.
I didn't say
We all,
100% fine.
yeah, that's, but I said, how are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that, how are you everybody's is a war.
Okay.
There's nobody gonna say, how are you? That's not gonna say fine.
So
I mean, majority. Some would try to tell you the problem. You're like,
I was gonna
you're
ask
like,
you, what, and then
nah,
what
I'll be
if?
back.
And what if, like, so in your question, you ask someone,
Mhm,
how are you? And they're like, you
mhm,
know what, man, I've had a horrible day. Like, I had a flat tire this morning. I ran out of gas on the
mhm,
highway. I broke my shoe.
mhm,
My wife called me and cussed me out
mhm.
because like, so then what do you do in that
It's a
moment?
different slate of word.
Okay. So like,
Because
so what's your response to that then?
if somebody tell me, how are
Yeah,
you?
because if they
No,
didn't say fine, but they actually like,
if somebody the way like if somebody said like, hey, how are you? How was your day and what
mhm,
you did today?
mhm,
I'm like that person want to talk. I'm like they I mean I'm okay, but this and
mhm,
that. But
mhm.
how are you? Case closed.
Yeah,
The next thing is fine. Everybody goes their way.
yeah.
That happened to me. I was using the restroom and somebody said, how are you? To me, I said, fine. And I said, how are you? He's like, I said, I ain't got time for that.
You see,
Go outside. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to hear it.
that's the thing. So that,
But if I want to hear it, right? If I see like let's say now if me and you are really close, right?
sure,
And you're like my girl, I'm not gonna say how are you. I'm
okay,
gonna say, hey baby, how are you? What happened today? Are you okay?
yeah,
How was your day?
yeah.
What happened today?
Well, then that's
And then she's
different,
gonna no, that's me having a conversation.
right? But that's
Me
different.
trying to give you that time, right?
Yeah,
My how are you is 1 second. You telling me fine, I'm going, you going, everybody's good, right?
right. Yeah.
So I'm not giving you that chance to talk. So where I brought that is back to
Uh-huh.
what I was saying of
Mhm,
me saying, leave him, right? You telling
mhm,
me you came to me, right?
mhm.
and you're telling me your boyfriend is beating you up, right?
Mm.
And I say, leave him. If I was you, leave him.
Uh-huh.
That's not the right thing to say.
What would be the right
The
thing
right
to
thing
say?
to say is what actually happened.
Okay.
Why is he beating you?
Okay.
What are you doing that makes him beat you? Why there's a cost to a fire.
Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
there's a cost
What
to a
is
fire.
she doing that's
I'm
causing
coming.
him
I'm
to be?
coming. Let me finish. What are you
Wow.
doing that's making him beat you? What happened? She will give you all the details, and then you can know how to give her proper advice, and that creates a chance to talk, right? That's how you advise somebody. But if you come to me and say, "Hey, well, if I was you, you shouldn't be with him," I'm closing that chapter of conversation. That's why you see a lot of kids when they rather talk to their mom than their dad, because when they go to dad, dad is gonna be strict and push away. They don't like that. So when they need advice, most of the time they go to their mom because they know the mom is gonna sit down and talk with them and grasp all the areas and everything and tell them, oh, you didn't do right in this, or you're my son or you're my daughter, I love you. You can do better. I believe in you. So your mom is letting you know what you did wrong, but she's also pushing the comfort, to make you feel happy and do better. Compared to your dad saying, hey, you didn't do good, don't ever do that. That's not right. Case closed. You are. That's disciplinarity. You're gonna know what you did is wrong and never do it. But inside you, you're gonna feel bad. You're like, if I know I wouldn't have told my dad, I would have find somebody I told but he told me the truth, he was saying the truth, but I'm not happy inside. I feel like I haven't got my 100% urge appreciation or feeling acceptance. Then you go to your mom. Your mom will tell you what you did is wrong, but she will still give you that nurture and feeling acceptance. That's the difference. Yeah, I'm done with that.
So if a woman came to you and shared that her husband beats on her,
Hmm.
your response to her would be, okay, what's going on? What did you do that caused him to hit you?
Hmm.
That's interesting.
That's not my only response. That's what you picked on.
I that wasn't
That's
so
what that's what you picked on.
I
I said so many things apart from that. That's the only thing that you grasp.
so I I mentioned that you asked, so what happened?
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things you said,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you also said, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't list all the things you said. I
Thank you.
just listed two that I heard.
No, you listed one that you grasped.
The two that I heard, you said what happened,
Mm-hmm.
and what actions did you do that led him to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm not going to touch that because I feel this conversation is going to take a sharp turn.
No, no,
I know,
no, you
and
can touch
no,
it, but the
no.
only thing I would say there on
Okay.
that touch
Yeah.
is always when you want to talk about something, you have
Hmm.
to go all the way.
Okay.
You know.
Understood.
So whether it sounds good or not,
Yeah.
if you want to give somebody advice,
Hmm.
there's a cost and there's an advantage and
Okay.
there's an disadvantage
Sure.
and there's a reason why there's a fire. In any room there's a fire, there's a reason
Okay.
why there's a fire. That's why
So
when the fire people extinguish the house, they
hmm
find it, they look to see what caused the fire,
understood.
why the fire was done.
Understood. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to opt not to go down that road, um, and just kind of stay over here. So um, so you mentioned about like when it comes to children, and a lot of times the children tend to go get the advice from the mom because in some instances they're going to get like um, maybe like reassurance, they're going to get um, some consoling, they're going to get some advice, some nurturing, all of that from the mom. And then in some instances, when they go seek advice from the father, he's very stern and just, kind of stating the facts and, you did this and this is the result of that action, and therefore don't do it again, and you just go on about your way. And, everybody has their way of providing advice, especially when it comes to like children. So I do see like in some instances, like with kids, they know their parents, they know who's the strict one, they know who's the one that's a little bit more lenient. So I can see like in some of those instances where, and it's not always the mom that's lenient, sometimes it's the dad.
Yeah.
Sometimes the dad is the one that's a little bit more lenient and the mom is more strict, so like the kids know like who to go ask what.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I do agree with you on that. So I think, when it comes to, again, providing advice and advisement, we need to consider the source, not only if the individual has experience or knowledge in that specific area, but the kind of person that they are. So I think about like Jesus, right? So according to the Bible, Jesus was never married. Okay? He was never married. He never had any children. But we get a lot of guidance from the word on what to do in certain situations. Jesus spoke to the disciples in parables. They followed him. They saw him do all this works and all this other stuff, right? So when you look at that particular situation, I believe that there are people that are walking this earth who may not have like firsthand experience in like raising children or firsthand experience in being in a marriage that can give you applicable advice that can be applied to your marriage, right? So you think about like the gardener who is sowing the seeds and what that parable represents. You can take that parable and apply that to your marriage or apply that to your career or how you're raising your children. So I also want to preface to say not only the person having experience in that department is important, but just the character of that person. And if they're able to give you advice that's going to, number one, cause you to think before you act, right? You need to consider all of the possible outcomes if you were to make this decision. So let's use the example of someone is having issues in their relationship and they're contemplating leaving their relationship, right? So as a good friend, you want to make sure that your friend is going to be okay. Like whatever decision you make, I'm going to support you as best as I can, but you got to make that decision. But you got to consider all of the alternatives. Like how is that going to impact your household? How is that going to affect your children? How's that going to affect you? How's that going to affect your spouse? How's that going to affect your finance? Right? Yeah. So you need to consider all of these things before you make a haste decision because you're emotional. Like, do you just need to sleep it off? Yeah. Maybe you need to create some space between you and your spouse. Maybe you go stay with your mom for a couple of days and just kind of like let it breathe a little bit. And then like once you have a cool head, he has a cool head. Hey, can we talk? Yeah. And y'all have a conversation. Let's talk through like what happened. How did we get here? Is this salvageable? Like, can we work through this? And a lot of times like people are able to work through things if they just have an opportunity to sit down and talk. Yeah. But I think in this cancel culture that we have now, at the first inconvenience, you're ready to run out the door.